Warning: the following video may contain spoilers or talk of sensitive topics. Continue if you wish.
Hey guys, it's Mia here and welcome back once again to another show review. This video is going to be a little special. So we have a guest on Discord today. Please welcome Lucas from Couch Party. Hi.
Hello.
Do you want to tell the people why I brought you on to the channel today?
Yes. We wanted to collab for a while, and it started off with book series, but then that wasn't happening because I ran out of time. But then she was like, hey, I haven't seen The Mandalorian. I'm like, you need to. And now we're here because we finally watched The Mandalorian. We knocked out the entire second season last night, which was glorious.
Yes, I'm still tired, but that was pretty fun. So he thought that in doing The Mandalorian, because I'm someone that likes action and adventure, that'd be a good start to get me into Star Wars. And they have been kicking my ass about getting into Star Wars, so that's where we are. So we thought today, I took a bunch of notes while we were watching the video, or the show, so we thought it'd be cool to talk about some questions and go through what we thought about the show. So let's get into this, shall we, Luke?
Yes. Let's do it.
Alright, so I figured we could intersplice the questions and the, stuff we thought about the movie. So I'm going to start with one of the questions, and that's, what exactly makes a Mandalorian?
Basically, you just have to take up the creed. You get adopted by a Mandalorian if you're not born of Mandalore. You're either born of Mandalore or you're a foundling, and you get adopted somewhere down the line, and then you just pick up the creed and you just go on Mandalorian your way through.
So you have to be adopted by a Mandalorian to be considered a Mandalorian, or raised by them.
Right, you can't just jump up and you just can't jump up and go, well, I'm a Mandalorian. It's like kind of like getting a citizenship almost, but it's more of like a fancy title. You have to be like part of the family. Mandalorians have very strong family ties, so you have to be pretty much accepted into a Mandalorian clan or family, and then from that, then you become Mandalorian.
Right.
That's if you're coming outside. If you're coming from the outside. If your mom is a Mandalorian, your dad's a Mandalorian, you're in
Automatically
a Mandalorian by blood by that point. Yeah.
So who trains the Mandalorian? Is there like a clan leader or something like that then?
Usually Mandalorians just train other smaller Mandalorians. It depends on what part of the family you're at. There's Mandalorian families where I'm going to try not to spoil it, but there is one family where like the mom is very warrior-like, and all of the warrior kind of stuff came from the mom, but all the artistry and creativity came from the dad. He wasn't so much of a warrior, but more of like a public speaker on Mandalore. And so other Star Wars fans will know who I'm talking about. But but yeah, it's just you can get trained by your family. Other clan members can train you. As Mando has been seen, he's learned different things from like the Ugnaught quarry. He's learned things from the I can't remember the lady's name, but this guy, the mechanic from the show from on Tatooine. He's learned things from her. So I mean, Mandalorian, it's like you just learn different combat skills. I mean, every Mandalorian goes through the same thing every other person goes. Like, you have parents, they teach you. You have teachers, they teach you. You have coaches, depending on what you're into.
That makes sense.
Not every Mandalorian is the same. Mandalorians are very, very different. And
so one thing that I kept wondering throughout the whole show that wasn't really answered was why Mandalorian felt so drawn towards the child. Like, what made him stop and kill him? Was it stopping from killing him? Was it just the fact that he was a baby, or was there something more there?
Well, I think if you look at you can learn from the flashbacks the story of Din Djarin of Mando and what he had to go through or what he's already gone through, and he can relate to this kid. And if you notice a lot of the shots where the kid is looking up at him from the little ball thing, the prim, it's very similar to the shots of when Mando opens the doors from when he was a kid, because his parents put him in that basement, and then the doors open and you see the Mandalorian. Those shots are very, very similar. And so I think Mando can relate to this kid. He realizes it's a kid, and he can just relate. I think he just has a level of empathy, and he realizes like this kid didn't do anything wrong. This isn't a regular bounty. This isn't somebody who like smuggled money from somebody. This is somebody who's like trying to dodge, the law or anything. This is just a kid. The kid has no idea what's going on around him. He just knows that people want him for whatever reason. And so the kid's in hiding, and then Mando's just like, well, you didn't do anything. Like,
I'm not going to kill you
obviously
for that.
right. Obviously, you're some form of sentient. Like, people kept calling him a pet, but Mando figured out, no, you're an actual, like, sentient being. Like, you have cognition of something in your head going on. So
a thing that I noticed with I know I'm bouncing around in my questions, but these were just the questions that popped in my head. But the Mando helmets, very much to me, kind of look like old style Greek battle helmets. Is that what they're based on?
They do look a lot like those helmets and Spartan helmets and Roman helmets, and I'm sure that was part of where they pulled some of the design. Star Wars has a very unique way of looking at things in the real world and then implementing them into the Star Wars world. And so, like, I mean, I don't know if you've noticed this, but one of the design choices behind Stormtroopers is skeletons.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you actually look at their helmet design and compare it to like the human skull, it actually is like very similar, and you can see the elements that they took from skull iconography and then put it in the Stormtrooper. And so in Mandalorians, I'm sure somebody down the line, and I can't remember exactly what the design reasons were behind it, because it was a design by Ralph McQuarrie.
Mm-hmm.
They were supposed to originally they were supposed to be a super commando. They were supposed to be a next generation of Stormtrooper, but then they changed it to a one character, one mercenary, which was Boba Fett, and then put him in there, and it's quite funny with how they did it. But whether it's from Spartan Design, I don't know if that's where they were coming from, or whether they're just like, hey, this T-visor thing looks cool. I mean, there are a lot of people who cosplay as Mandalorians, and they put that Roman plume on their helmets, and they go for like the bronze look, and I see it a lot on Pinterest. Actually, my brother-in-law wants me to make him a Mandalorian helmet with that plume, so that way he has like a kind of like more gladiator kind of Mandalorian helmet.
That's awesome. So, speaking of helmets, let's jump to this question since it relates. The blue Mandalorians take off their helmets, and I thought that was something extremely against the law for them. Can you explain why they're allowed to?
Okay, and so this is where and Bo-Katan kind of explains it. He's part of the Children of the Watch, and so if you've seen the Clone Wars and you've seen Rebels, Mandalorians taking their helmets is a very normal thing. That I was confused when they were like, "Oh, you're taking off your helmet. You're not Mandalorian." I'm like, what happened to you? Like, what happened? Because that's not how it was for us. And so that confused me when it came out. And so I was hoping that eventually I knew they're going to explain it somehow. And it is a part of the Children of the Watch. And if you notice while watching the flashback scenes when the Mandalorians rescue him,
Mm-hmm.
they have the same symbol on their shoulder pads as
thing?
the Mandalorians in the Clone Wars.
Mm.
And so in the Clone Wars, there's a group called Death Watch, and their entire purpose is to bring back the warrior ways of Mandalore. But Death Watch, in itself, is a group of clans. So one clan probably took it way more seriously and created the Children of the Watch, and are training foundlings and the next generation of Mandalore in the older ways of Mandalore.
Mm-hmm.
So what Bo-Katan represents is the newer Mandalorians, the ones who, or the more modern Mandalorians, where you can take off your helmet. There are certain things that you can hold on to where, what's more important, what we do or what we believe in. And so for Bo-Katan, she believes in Mandalore. She believes in the people. She believes that they need to take their planet back. How they do that, she doesn't care. As long as Mandalore is together, that's her beliefs. Whereas we've got Din Djarin, where it's more of a ritualistic kind of cult kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he's slowly realizing, okay, what makes me Mandalorian isn't these rules, it's what I do.
Right.
And so that's where we're getting that shift of now he's taking off his helmet more. Obviously there are some people who they're not going to take off the helmet because that's just part of their code. Yeah.
So I was thinking about this also because it never seems to happen, but do blasters ever actually run out of ammo?
So, yes, blasters are kind of in this weird category because there is ammo. There are clips. If you watch Star Wars: The Clone Wars, you will see that there are clones who carry ammo cartridges. They will talk about how they're low on ammo. We just don't really see them be low on ammo because it's just kind of there's a point where it's like, okay, we can go super high realistic, or we can not, and then just focus on the story and just have a good time, or we can just get sucked up in the details. And so ammo kind of in Star Wars, it's weird. It is odd because in Star Wars we have a lot of different weapons, and the best places I could look for when it comes to ammo is really the video games. For that answer, we do have in the original Star Wars Battlefront, and Battlefront 2 from like 2005, you could actually run out of ammo, and you'd have to go to an ammo droid and pick up more ammo in order to be able to get back in the fight. The actual how a weapon functions in Star Wars never really gets explained. It's just, hey, it goes pew pew,
and you're good.
moving on.
So
right.
With weapons, there comes the Jedi, and I was wondering, is there a Jedi for every single race, or is it just specific to some races?
So the way Jedi work, it is not narrowed down by race. It is not narrowed down by a specific race of people. And so when you break down the biology of Star Wars, and one of the things that the scientist says is M count. The M stands for midichlorians. You've seen episode 1, The Phantom Menace, right?
Yeah. And I've heard of the midichlorians.
Okay, so so, and this is a subject a lot of people don't like, but midichlorians are basically the microorganisms in your body that allow you to commune with the Force. And so that's where the Jedi learn how to communicate with the Force, is that they have microorganisms in their bodies that allow them to communicate with it. The more you have,
the stronger
the
you
easier
are.
that is to do. Yes. And so some races have it. Most races have it. It depends on the individual. Some races have more people a part of the Jedi Order than other races. We see plenty of Twi'leks, Togrutas. We see definitely a lot of humans. What those could be categorized as like a bunch of different things, because you've got Corellians, you've got Mandalorians, you've got Alderaanians, you've got all kinds of stuff. Going down the list, and then you have some races where they have very few Jedi or very few people part of the Jedi Order. There is a Wookiee Jedi named Gunji, only one that I am aware of as of yet. And then the Mandalorians had one Jedi in their history.
Cool. It's the midichlorians that prove if you're a Jedi or not.
Well, it proves that you have the ability of the Force. The Jedi is one faction, and then who use the light side of the Force, and then there's the Sith, or the other faction that use the dark side of the Force.
Right.
So it just,
And it's
the midichlorian counts depict whether you're Force sensitive.
Right, gotcha. So, now, this is the question I asked you last night, and this is the last questions. Were the Empire not designed to kill him, but they wanted to kill the child for fear that he was a Jedi? And did they kill the rest of his race also because of that? For fear that he would end up like Yoda?
So, the actual things that happen in this, and so here's the number one, what the Empire wanted to do, or at least what Moff Gideon wanted to do, is that he wanted to take the blood and research it of the child. Or for those who have seen the second season, Grogu. That's what they wanted to do. At the end, obviously Moff Gideon was going to try to kill him, but that's because it's like, okay, if I can't have him, you can't have him.
Right.
Kind of mentality. So that's what that was. And we don't know the full extent of why he wanted to get into it. There are some theories that I'm not going to go into because you have not seen 7, 8, and 9.
No.
Especially 9.
I'm slacking.
Yeah, it's okay. So Yoda goes in hiding. Sidious knows that he's not dead.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the Empire pretty much thinks he's dead. They just, or doesn't care to look for him because he hasn't bothered to show up.
Right.
Like, he's on the watch list, he's on the most wanted list, but they also don't make that public because they also don't want other people to go try looking for him that are on the opposite side.
Mm-hmm.
Because after Revenge of the Sith, the Empire hunts down all of the Jedi. They look for all of them, and they try to kill them all. And so there are very, very few Jedi left. Yoda goes to a planet that shall be unnamed for the fact that you haven't seen Empire Strikes Back. People are probably going to get annoyed at me. They're just like, why aren't you saying the name? Yoda goes into hiding on this planet with no inhabitants, lives by himself for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Empire doesn't really know that Yoda is alive. His species, from the looks of things, his species does look like to be more toward the in tune with the Force than other species. There's actually a third member of Yoda's species, if you didn't catch it. But in Episode 1, and 2, I think, there's a member of the Jedi Council called Yaddle.
Yaddle.
And it's a girl Yoda.
Mm.
She was a Jedi Master, but there was a third member there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of theories involving, like, the origins of Grogu, because Grogu was at the Jedi Temple during Order 66. He was there while Yoda was there, presumably while Yaddle was there, because the species lives for a very, very long time. So, yeah, I mean, one of the many theories is Grogu the son of Yoda? Is he the son of Yaddle? You know, but I mean, which then leads into the dilemma of, because the Jedi are like, well, you can't form attachments. It's like, well, then you can't. We don't know if the Jedi can actually fuck or not. We don't really know. Because you can't form attachments.
Right.
But from that point of view, that looks very, very hypocritical, but I don't know. There's also the case of, is Yoda's species endangered in the Star Wars universe? Are they willing to go, okay, you know, we're not going to form attachments, we're going to go through this, but only because we need to kickstart our race back up, and we need to produce more numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the case? There's a lot of things that we don't know. And, you know, part of it is that George's original plan was he didn't want to explain Yoda too much. He didn't want to, like, no one knows the name of his species. No one has ever found out the name of this species since Yoda's inception in Empire Strikes Back. So 1980.
Wow.
No one knows.
So no one knows.
And did that answer your question? What was the original question? Hold up.
The original question was, did they try to kill him because he was like Yoda?
I don't think it was because he was like Yoda. I think they wanted, you know, for the Empire, or at least what's left, or at least Moff Gideon's detachment, their mentality seems to be, okay, if we can't have it, you can't have it. And we see that multiple times in the show. We see it with that one admiral where it's like, oh, the Mandalorians took over 99% of the ship except for the cockpit. Okay, well, I guess we're going down. Shoots his buddies and then tries to smash the thing into the ground. And then in order not to give intel, he killed himself.
Right.
And so, and it seems like the Empire does that frequently. Like the one pilot that picks up the scientist kills his co-pilot almost immediately. He didn't care. And so it seems like the Empire at this point in time is on their breaking point. They're at that point where it's like, okay, you know what, we cannot allow you to have a win.
So we're going to do whatever it takes to win. Right,
you know, it's like, you know, me playing Fortnite and I go, you know what, I will give you the satisfaction. And so as people are shooting at me, I jump off a cliff.
Right. So that's the last question. So in a bit, we're going to move on to the actual discussion. So portion is going to be us discussing the actual shows and what we liked and what we disliked. So do you want to go first in something you like, or do you want me to go first?
Well, I mean, I really like the whole show in its entirety. I think one of my favorite episodes is the first episode of the second season.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely one of my favorites because it is just a Western movie. And so I had a lot of fun with it because it's a nice change of pace. And one of the things that Star Wars is based on is Westerns. And I was never a big Western person. I loved Shanghai Noon. Actually, I take that back. I was a Western person. And it was just, you know, and there's a lot of things in the Clone Wars that I really like. I love the scum and villainy of Star Wars. That's actually my mom's favorite thing about Star Wars is the scum and villainy. I love the clones, but she's the scum and villainy kind of person for whatever reason.
Mm.
That's what she likes. I'm not saying that she's scum and villainous. She just really likes the scum and villainy of Star Wars.
So one of my favorite things was the connection between the Mandalorian and the child, because you're like, why are they so connected? Like, it's so cute to see him be so protective of the child, and even I'm over here like, if you hurt the child, I'm gonna wring your neck, you know? And like I said, I was protective over the Mandalorian, like, the child so hard, and I'm like, no, and there was this, like, every time the child was in trouble, I was like, no, and I was probably getting on your nerves because I was like so freaking out every time the child was hurt or something.
No, yeah, they have a very strong connection, and what I really like it is that it's definitely a family story, but it's it's a dad and a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
Except the dad is wearing a helmet all the time and has to dodge lasers and ends up having to he's just nuts. But that's the thing that I really like. I like that connection because it's just one of those things where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like every time I'm like with my little nieces who are also on the young side, they are my little baby Yodas. I'm just sitting there like,
Aww.
oh, this is how it feels to be the Mandalorian, because it's like I gotta make sure that they don't get hurt.
Right.
And then at the same time, I do a lot of Star Wars stuff, so it's just like, oh my god, I am the Mandalorian. Got my helmet in the garage, but yeah, no, I love the connection that they have. I love Grogu. Grogu's awesome. I want to go to Build-A-Bear and pick up the Build-A-Bear Grogu, but I'm low on money, so I'm not going to. But yeah, they do have a really strong connection, and it is due to the fact that Mando can relate to not having parents.
Mm-hmm.
And he can relate to being an orphan, and he can relate to also have been found by a Mandalorian and brought into this culture. So it is really nice to see that story.
Yes.
And it's so adorable, and it's awesome, and I love it.
Going from what I really liked to what I really didn't like was the green screening. The green screening in this, at least for me, was very distracting. And
The green screen?
Yeah, like for when they're in space and stuff. Like, those looked very fake to me. Like, all the backgrounds.
I have some news for you. That was not a green screen.
Well, it looked like a green screen to me. Did they put it in?
It is not a green screen. No, it's actually what they did was they built this room of LED screens, and they created this virtual environment that would project onto not only would you be able to get to see the background on set, and I will admit they did use blue screen and green screen in some areas where they actually had to go shoot exterior shots, but for like when he's in the hangar on Tatooine, actually I think all of Tatooine was in what they call the volume, and they even with the ships too. That's how they handled the VFX now. There's not actually green screen. The background is real. I mean, it's not a real Starfield. It's computer generated and then projected on these massive screens, but that's not green screen. And they're actual real things that interact with them, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Like, I noticed they did a lot of practical effects, which is a good point I was going to make, was that they did a good job blending the, like, CGI and the practical effects, especially with the child. And because a lot of times I was like, is this CGI or is this an animatronic? Because sometimes it looks one way and the other time it looks this way. But it was so seamlessly done that I couldn't tell.
Yeah, it is that little creature, and like I said, we gotta go watch the video, the episodes that they made to show how they made the creature, because the creature is mostly animatronic for the most part. I think for the actual walking, I want to say they have a guy above it, and he's kind of like moving it with his hands. I think he's got some wires or something, or maybe it's from the bottom, and he's just behind, and they're probably rotoscoping out these like green sticks, moving it along. Because I want to say they do that with the hands. It's old Muppet kind of fashion. But the eyes are controlled by one person, the mouth is controlled by another person, and then the ears are controlled by a third person. On top of a separate person moving the hands or making him waddle around as he's walking. It's a whole process. And so it is really cool how they made it, because it is real. And there are some shots where they're like, okay, we have to use a CG version. But one of the things that they told the VFX department, they're like, you make sure that when you make the CG shots, he's not doing anything that the puppet couldn't necessarily do.
Mm-hmm. Which is
And
what
so like you
made it
can't
so
make him
seamless.
move too fluidly. Right. They mimicked it to be very similar to the puppet, which is pretty dope.
Cool. So, one of the things we were talking about while we were talking after watching it one night was the fact that the score for this show is absolutely well done. And it's so beautiful how they handle it and how they put you in the situations with the music.
Yes, no, I love the music, and that's what got me into Star Wars initially. And I know I told you last night, and I'll reiterate for the people watching it, that's how I got into Star Wars. My buddy asked me, he's like, how'd you get into Star Wars? And I'm like, I don't know. For those of you who don't know, my full name is George Lucas. So I always thought that my mom just came in and was like, hey, come here, come see this. And then at the end of a Star Wars movie, and then it goes created by George Lucas. It's like, that's your name. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Then, I continue on, my life. And I thought that's how I got into it, was the name association. Turns out that wasn't necessarily the case. My mom was watching Star Wars downstairs, and I was upstairs doing whatever a 2-year-old does. And I hear the music from upstairs, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. So I come down, find out it's coming from the TV, and I sit my ass in front of the TV, and I'm just like, and I'm just watching Star Wars like the entire time. Actually, I used to call it Star Horse as a kid because I was very much into horses. I didn't fully understand that it was actually called Star Wars. I called it Star Horse. Somehow we were all on the same page here. That's just because my mom's a kid. And so, yeah, and up until I think I was like maybe 8 that I realized, oh, it's Star Wars.
You didn't tell me that part.
It's just... No, I didn't tell you that part, but it is one of the funnier parts. But yeah, that's how I got into Star Wars. And so, when Disney bought Star Wars, and I think I was a little afraid when Rogue One was coming out, because John Williams wasn't doing the score. It was a guy named Michael Giacchino. And I went into that theater, I was like, oh my god, this score is amazing. And then The Mandalorian came out, and it sounds way different than everything else. Because it's like, I mean, the Star Wars movies, Rogue One and Solo, along with the core 6 and the sequel trilogy, all have a very traditional Star Wars sound. Yes. Rebels sounds very reminiscent to New Hope and Episode 4, and then Clone Wars has more of kind of a rock kind of thing. And they definitely experimented a lot with the music because each planet had its own kind of cultural music. Like if you go to Tatooine, you'll hear something very similar to Japanese music. You go to The Mandalorian, and then I find out the dude got the theme from a recorder. And it's just... Mandalorian has such a different and very specific sound to it. And it sounds awesome. And then there are times like when we got to season 2 at the end and we got to the Dark Troopers, all of a sudden I'm listening to dubstep and I'm like, that's new. I'm like, that's not what I normally would listen to in Star Wars, but there it is. And so it's really cool to hear all that.
I just thought it was beautiful, and it put you in the scenes very well and made it feel more realistic to me. So with that, there's 2 things back to back that I noted, and that is the fight scenes seem very smooth, but they don't seem smooth to the point that you don't feel like anyone's going to get hurt. They feel very natural. So,
I mean, I really enjoy the fight scenes. I think my favorite fight scene is the scene where Boba Fett goes in, he comes back, he reveals himself, and then has the gaffy stick, and he's just meleeing these stormtroopers, and I love seeing the parts fly off. Because in Star Wars, and they don't show it in the original trilogy because they didn't have the budget to just break them constantly, but starting with Rogue One, you hit a stormtrooper really hard in the head with a stick, their helmet shatters because it's a plastoid, and that's how that works. You hit plastic really hard, it shatters. Almost not as like glass, but still hit it hard enough, it's gonna crack.
Right.
So I really enjoyed the fight scenes to a lot of what was going on, and part of it, and I think I understand where you're coming from, because I mean a lot of it is that everyone's wearing these thick armor
Yes.
with lots of layers that prohibits their movement. And I was actually talking to a couple of my buddies who do dress up as stormtroopers. They're in the 501st Legion, and one of the things that we were talking about, especially with my clone trooper that I'm doing, it is very difficult to move in these things. You don't get to walk like a normal person would.
No.
Because you can't run or do a lot of things. Like with my helmet, I cannot put my helmet on without help because my forearm piece going up like this catches the inner part of my elbow, and I cannot lift my hand any higher. So I can get my helmet to like right here, but I can't like get it over my head.
Right.
So I'd have to do a lot more trimming to it. So instead of maybe the piece going right here, I have to cut out like 1.5 inches so I can do that. But that's the only way that you can do it. There's so many things that you're doing. So it's very hard for the stormtroopers to move. The Mandalorians have a little bit more leeway, but you still have this hard plastic on your chest. And then, like with Mando in the final fight, he's got a jetpack. He's got all of his armor. He's got these boots. He's got this helmet that is very difficult to see out of. And then he's got this staff hooked on his back, which is gonna catch on something. And then he has his cape, and his cape is gonna get caught on things. So I can see where you're coming from, where it doesn't look like they're gonna get hurt. But I really did enjoy the fight scenes in a majority of it. I think the only one I wasn't like too into is when Mando runs into Cara Dune for the first time. When they're and I think episode 2. No. Episode 3. I think it's 3. And and they're fighting each other, and I'm just sitting here, I'm like, but Mando, you could have just, because that's what I think. If the audience thinks, oh, well, why didn't he just do this? Like, oh, there was your opportunity and you didn't take it.
Right.
That's when choreography is not the best. I'm going to say bad. These fight scenes are still really good, and these people are doing all that they can while having their heads stuffed in these helmets.
Yeah, they're really good for the prohibited movement with the... And I can't imagine how hot those are either. And they're doing full-on stunt coordinated fights.
Right, and I can tell you, as a person who has worn armor similar, it gets hot very quickly.
So you gotta be a hell of a trooper to be able to be in this like armor and doing this stuff. So that's commendable even there, because they're probably sweating buckets.
Oh yeah, it's funny that you say that. Most of the helmets are made out of buckets. But yeah, that's just how that all works. I mean, but there are still action scenes that are really kick-ass. Yes. I like the final fight in the in season 1 when they're infiltrating the Star Destroyer in season 2. Not the Star Destroyer, the Star Cruiser. It's not a Star Destroyer. Star Destroyers are much larger. Let me think. The Armorer, when she's dealing with those stormtroopers in the what is it called? Kind of like in the end of season 1 when she was like fighting them with the hammers. That was really cool.
That was epic. That was awesome. Right.
And then like especially with some of the aliens, like because I think one of the other scenes that might be at fault of what you're talking about would be the when Mando gets ambushed by the I think they're called Trandoshans, the lizard-like people. When he's bringing the child back to his ship.
Yes.
I can see that, but those are all real costumes. Or the Gamorrean fight, the Gamorrean cage fight. I felt like, okay, I'm like, this could be a little more violent, but
just
unless it was not. But I mean, they're wearing all of this makeup, and especially like when your head is covered, like you don't know the full extent of what you're doing, and then
you could hurt someone.
You don't want to reach out too far, and then but more than once, people have accidentally whacked a kid with their blaster because they could not see them, because your vision is so narrow. You're a stormtrooper. You can't aim. You don't know what's around you. And so, yeah, plenty of times kids have gotten whacked or somebody's gotten whacked because we just don't see them. So it's a matter of,
and
okay, sorry, I guess.
And here we all are picking on stormtroopers for their terrible aim. They just can't see because they're damn helmets. with the fight scenes, I noticed that there was an awful lot of teleportation. And I don't mean like teleportation as in they have the power to teleport, but it's like one character's clear over here on the other side, and then all of a sudden the enemy turns around and they're right behind them. Like, that seems very plot convenient to me in a way, and because like if the audience sees the character clear over across the way, and then the enemy turns around and they're right behind them, that kind of takes the sort of immersion away for me just a little bit.
Okay. Well, with that, I can tell you definitely part of what that might be is just part of the editing process.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really good... man, I'll have to figure out how I can show this to you, because I know you live farther away from me by several thousand miles. But in Solo, there is a fight scene, and I won't spoil what the fight scene is or who it is, but there is a fight scene, and in the behind the scenes, they show the original fight scene, and it was much longer. In order to fit the time frame of how long the movie was supposed to be, you have to start cutting things out. And so they would take a look at scenes, and they go, okay, well, this needs to be cut down. And so any shots that they can get away with, okay, well, they're in a similar motion over here, they're still behind the person over here. If they can make it smooth enough, then they'll do it. So probably what you're noticing is that process. And that's with every fight scene. If you look at any fight scene, you will notice things like that, where maybe their hands have switched places. Like, I'm holding the staff this way, but in the next shot, I'm holding it this way.
Right.
One other Star Wars fight scene that comes to mind where people bring that up a lot is in The Last Jedi, which I will not spoil, because it is actually a dope scene. I really enjoyed that scene that is being talked about. People are probably going to yell at me for it, but that's fine.
They can
yell at me all you want. I can't hear you. I do. And there are flaws in that fight scene. There are some continuity errors in that fight scene, which might have been avoided, but I can tell you The Mandalorian does not have as many continuity errors as that fight scene, which I still also, like I said, enjoyed. I can enjoy something that, yes, okay, there are flaws, but I find that just adds to it, because it's like, oh my gosh, look. And one of the things that you didn't know, and you didn't get to see this, and I didn't even spot it on my first time seeing it, so I never even got to really like watch it. In The Mandalorian, when they break into the place where they blow up the reactor, when Grogu goes to school.
Yeah.
Well, in the background, you see a guy with a t-shirt and jeans.
I didn't notice.
But people noticed, people were pointing it out, and then Disney went back, painted the guy out, and then re-uploaded the episode without anybody knowing. Which kind of sucks, because I really enjoy moments like that. There's a lot of moments like that in Star Wars. But you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, that's not supposed to be there. It's obvious that's not supposed to be there. We need to paint that out. And so they have the power to do that now. Yes. And Star Wars had that plenty of times. There was in the original Star Wars in A New Hope, there is a shot where Alec Guinness's lightsaber doesn't have the color, it's just the stick.
Oh, jeez.
And then you can actually see the cable that goes down, because the lightsaber originally was this triangular prism shape on a rod that and there was a motor on the bottom and the hilt, and it had reflective material on the rod, and it spun it around to create that pulsating light effect. Okay.
Cool.
And in order to do that, there had to be a cord, so you could see the cord was attached to the bottom of his hilt and went down his sleeve. So that's one of those things that you can find. So there's tons of moments like that, and I love them. They're like part of my favorite things in the world. A New Hope had a few of them. I think, what was another one? There was a stormtrooper that bonked his head on top of a door frame.
I saw that one. I think I saw that one on YouTube with like funny bloopers from shows.
And in later editions, they added a sound effect to it, because it was an accident. It was a complete mess up. The dude just accidentally knocked his head on top of it, and then they went back and added a sound effect like, "Hey, that's funny," and then they just kept it, and it's still there. And that's a running gag in Star Wars.
Sometimes the best moments are accidents, and that's what makes them so awesome.
Oh yeah, there's so many good times. I'm trying to think. There's so many mistakes in Star Wars that are just fun to find. Like, they're almost like Easter eggs at this point. It's just like, that's funny.
Speaking of like armor and the like stuff that can go wrong with all of it, just the way that the Mandalorian moves, and you can tell every emotion that he feels even through the helmet. I absolutely love that, and I feel like his actor does a great job of speaking without his face to show his emotion.
Right. So he's more of a physical actor, and it is really cool to see because it's like there's so much emotion in that, and in how he moves and just how he does things. And I think one of the things is that I think Jon Favreau was talking about is that he doesn't move a lot. He's a very still character. But that's because then once he does start moving, there's actual emotion behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a really good job. He does a really good job voice acting because he has to voice over all of it.
Did he really?
I want to say Pedro Pascal, I want to say, did all the scenes where he had to like actually act with characters. But for the fight scenes, it's a stunt double, it's 2 stunt doubles. One of them has a massive amount of hair, more hair than me. I have no idea how he packs it on that helmet, but he somehow does. And then Pedro Pascal, the main actor of The Mandalorian, he goes into a booth, and it's really cool, and you'll see it when you watch the gallery and the behind the scenes. But to get himself into the role, and because there's scenes where he's carrying Baby Yoda, he's actually hugging a pillow.
Is he really?
He has a pillow that he's holding on to as if it was the child as he's acting, and it's really fun to watch because I'm just like, oh my god, that's funny. Like, but yeah. What was the question? Oh, his expression. So, yeah, I love how expressive this is, and especially with Star Wars, because it's surprising on how much expression you can get through helmets. Yes. In Star Wars, and I see it in Halo, I see it in Star Wars, I see it in Super Smash Brothers. No, the expressions that you can give off with helmets and stuff in Star Wars is just fantastic, and that's why I really love the Clone Wars. I love Rebels. Darth Vader, you can get a lot of emotion out of Darth Vader sometimes, even though his face, and then the helmet design too also helps depict who you're looking at and what is going on underneath.
There.
And so I think that's one of the cool things about
it was just so awesome.
You can get a lot of,
because you could tell what everyone is feeling, and you can't even see their face. It's amazing. I love it. They did such a great job working with all of the people, and that again, acting in that armor seems like it'd be torture because it'd be so hot.
Oh, it is. I haven't worn my armor for more than, I'm trying to think. I wore my armor, and it's not Mandalorian armor, it's clone armor. I'm working on Mandalorian armor. I'm just slow. Wearing my clone for, I'm trying to think, I was at one party for about maybe 45 minutes. Took it off, put it back in the car, went to another party, wore it for 45 minutes to an hour. And then and after taking it off, I realized, oh my god, I'm super hot in this. And then like today, or not today, I'm sorry, this last weekend, I was at an armor build party. I put it on just to get a sizing reference because it's still not done to my standards.
Yeah.
So I'm putting it on, and my buddies are giving me feedback, and I wasn't wearing it for more than like 30 minutes. And I take off the helmet, and all of a sudden I realized, oh my god, I'm sweating. Like, I didn't even realize. I was just like, oh my god, I just got like super hot in this, and I had no idea.
And that could dehydrate you.
Me being the dumbass that I am, I only had 1 cup of coffee. Jeez. No, I think I definitely was dehydrated. I only had 1 cup of coffee and then a donut.
Lucas.
And then and I didn't eat again until maybe like 5 o'clock. Like.
So I only have a couple more.
That's bad. I'm bad at eating. I need to fix that.
Yes, you do. I have a couple more points to talk about, and then I think we'll be all good. There was a character death that like absolutely wrecked me in the show, although I tried not to like bawl on the call with you. But, oh my goodness, that poor old man, and you probably know who I'm talking about. I was so upset because as soon as I wrote down, this man is awesome, I was like, oh, he died.
Yeah, I was like, I was sitting there. I was trying really hard not to laugh. I think it was when I was muting myself when we started watching. But you were like, "Oh, I hope he doesn't die." And I was just like, inside, I'm like,
has no
"Oh man,
idea.
this is not gonna be good for you."
No.
Angel did the exact same. Our friend Angel did the exact same thing when we were watching the Jason Bourne movies. He's like, "Oh, I really like that character. I hope she doesn't die." And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, and he was in the same room with me, so I'm just looking at him like,
You shouldn't have
Okay.
said that. So
that's tricking me. If I go dead silent, that means you are either spot on or dangerously close to something that's gonna happen.
well, see, that doesn't count for me because you can mute. So
I can, and I do, for the most part.
So, my least favorite episode, and this is by no means because the episode was bad, but oh my god, what is with fantasy and sci-fi shows and giant ass spiders? Why always spiders?
Okay, I know what you're talking about. That one, and I will tell you, I am not a fan of spiders. Although my shirt
no.
says the contrary, because Spider-Man is my favorite superhero.
Mine
but
too,
I
which
hate
is
spiders with
awkward.
passion. I don't like spiders. I know exactly what you're talking about, and they do show up in the cartoons. And I didn't like them in the cartoon. I really don't like them now. And so, but one of the things that most movie buffs would realize is that when Grogu eats the spiders from the egg and the way it opens and how all of the eggs open is very reminiscent to Alien and how the alien eggs hatch up, which I thought was really neat. I was like, oh, Alien. But
no, see, I think I did say that reminded me of Alien when we were on call at one point with how the spider went at his face. I was like, Alien.
It is quite literally an alien Easter egg. So yes, it is definitely. We all got the joke, but I just thought it was really cool. I did like that portion of it. Yes, but the spiders, fun history lesson, are actually unused concept art for Empire Strikes Back. On one of the planets that they go to, they draw out all these illustrations, and one of the other fun facts about those illustrations is that for A New Hope, the early concept art for R2 and 3PO, they're on Tatooine, and you can see Morro Rock, which is a landmark here in California, in the background because the artist lived in Morro Bay at the time he was doing this art, and so he put some Morro Bay in his work, which is really cool. But back to Empire Strikes Back, it was unused. They reused it for the cartoon, and then they were like, "Hey, you know what? Why don't we just use it again over here?" Because a lot of things are based off of in Star Wars. They do concept art. Whatever doesn't get used, they don't throw it away. They just keep it and they hold on to it, and then they always come back to it later, which is really kind of cool to think about because those spiders date back to the original trilogy, which I feel like it definitely helps kind of glue all this in together because each movie, each show is made in a different era in history, and things change by literally the year, and so it's like when we're talking about 4 decades ago, style and art and things were completely different. So it's really cool to be able to pull from unused art all the way from back then and even stuff in now that doesn't get used, like things that don't get used for The Force Awakens were used in Rebels. Things that weren't used for Empire Strikes Back are now used in The Mandalorian, and it helps kind of nice bringing things in together and has this uniformity to it that's still, things are definitely different, but they feel familiar.
Yes.
So, as much as I hate the spiders, I love the spiders.
Because it ties it all together.
And I didn't know that they could get that big or that small, which is even creepier.
Oh, it made my skin crawl. I think I literally turned away from the screen and like, no, I can't. But I did end up watching as much as it made my skin crawl, I did end up watching.
I got flashbacks from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I was like, no. And it was just, it was hard. It was definitely hard for me to watch for a minute there. And I was just like, ugh! But I was like, these aren't real spiders. These are alien spiders.
They're still spiders.
Are still worse. But yeah, no, I'm like, technically they're worse, but I know that they're fiction.
Right, yes. If they existed, I'd be gone. You wouldn't see me anymore. I'd be invisible.
Oh my god, yeah. If those things existed in real life, I'd be like, grr.
So I have...
I'll just be like, bye.
But I do have one more talking point, and then I think we're gonna wrap it up. So we were talking about this last night, and you're like, hang on, let's save this for the video. And I'm like, okay, cool. And that was the fact that, for me, for a minute, I thought that they wanted the child for his force powers. And I thought they were trying to figure out a way to have the force abilities for themselves. So I thought that I could not imagine having a part of you taken away like that. And it just seems so sad.
So, to quote a very old Harrison Ford, that's not how the Force works. They can't just take the Force away from you. There are cases where some Jedi have cut themselves off from the Force, and so they have to learn how to reuse it, but you can't just take away that ability. But with what they're doing, what the Empire is doing, or what Moff Gideon's division is doing, I keep saying that, what they're doing is that they're trying to take his blood and understand the science behind the Force. They want to use it as a weapon. There's enough detail to know. I mean, obviously they were doing blood transfusions with those samples that they got before Mando broke Grogu out from their clutches.
Mm-hmm.
That they are trying to combine it in the bloodstream. And so what the Empire is doing with this, I can tell you the theory, but The Mandalorian came out. These episodes came out after Episode 9 came out. So when it comes to Grogu and what they're doing, obviously they're trying to implement the Force in other people.
Right.
Like, okay, if I can put a blood transfusion in you, do you become Force sensitive? And that's kind of been a topic throughout Star Wars forever. There's a video game called Star Wars: The Force Unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this character who eventually dies, and then in the second game they bring him back via cloning.
Mm.
How do you clone a Jedi and give them abilities that are not necessarily something that you can just pick up and go with,
Right.
but is a talent? You know, being able to listen to the Force in itself is a talent. It's not just, not only do you have to have a high midi-chlorian count, but you have to have the talent and then have to have the training to focus on that talent and learn how to harness that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you put that in an artificial person? And it's been done before. So definitely there's a lot of science in Star Wars where people do mess with that exact idea of, can I take blood from a Jedi, transfuse it with somebody else, and give them artificial force powers?
Yes.
And so actually the Lego Star Wars shows have actually even touched on that too.
Really?
Fun fact. Oh yeah, and they're funny to watch. I love the Lego Star Wars content on there. I watched the whole Lego Freemaker Adventures, and I will watch it again because it's so funny.
And you're just...
I understand it's made for little kids, but oh my god, I had a great time watching it.
Just because it's made for little kids doesn't mean adults can't enjoy it.
Exactly.
So...
But anyway, so they can't take the Force away from him, but what they can do is physically hurt him. You know, you take enough blood away from somebody, obviously there's going to be effects. With Grogu, it wouldn't be... They're going to take his powers away from him. It's just that they're just going to tire him out, if anything.
Right. But that's what I originally thought they were trying to do. I didn't think about, hey, they're trying to, but that was my theory at first. So in conclusion, I will say that you succeeded with this little evil plot of yours in showing me this show in order to push me more into the Star Wars universe. So, because I feel like you did a really good job of finding a Star Wars medium that fit my taste, because I'm very much into adventure, action, and all of that, and that very much has this. So I feel like this show, if you are like me and you like those sort of things, and you're trying to get into Star Wars, this is definitely a good point for you to start in, and I plan on watching more in the future because of The Mandalorian. So, well, Luke...
Right, so for those of the people watching who are Star Wars fans and are trying to get their friends to watch it, this is basically what I did is that I figured out what Mia's interests were, and then I went, okay, well, let's go do this. And really, actually, I wanted to be completely honest with Mia, I wanted to start you on the Clone Wars,
Hmm.
which we haven't watched yet. I think the reason why we went into The Mandalorian a little behind the scenes is because we're collaborating on 2 videos. This video, which you all will be seeing, and then there's the video that's going to go on my YouTube channel, which is shameless plug. Sorry.
You could plug away.
I mean, that's why I'm here. But I have a gaming channel called Couch Party Inc.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of that is that we wanted to work on a video where we could talk about a movie, book, or TV show here on her channel.
Yes.
And then play a video game that relates to that on our channel. So if you want to go watch us play Fortnite, where I play as the Mandalorian, then I don't know how you want to do it. I don't know if she's putting a link in the description.
I'll
However
put
she
it
does
in
it.
the iCard, and I'll put it in the description. So if you want to check out his channel,
All right,
you
and
can go
then
there.
yeah, so you guys can go watch that. But I recommend, instead of showing it in order, because I understand Star Wars never came out in order.
Mm-hmm.
We started in the middle, and then went back to the beginning. And then now we're all over the place. Like, I think the next show that comes out is Bad Batch, which takes place right after episode 3.
Mm.
So, and then like what we just watched right now is after episode 6 by like a couple of years, I think.
But you don't have to
So
watch those to understand it, because I understood it just fine. So if you have not seen Star Wars, don't worry.
right. So yeah, right. As long as you don't over-explain things.
Mm-hmm.
I think enough of me and my friends have done that, and I have learned through trial and error. Do not over-explain things. Let them come into it at their own pace. Let the new people, I should say, come in, the younglings or the foundlings in this case, come into this at their own pace, and then, go through it. So from what I understand, I mean, a lot of things in The Mandalorian can be explained in Star Wars and Rebels. So I think that's where we're going next.
All right.
Depending on what she wants to do. You've seen the prequel trilogy.
Oh yeah.
I'm falling into the trap of over-explaining. I'm sorry, but
See, what were you saying about over-explaining?
I'm sorry. I get that. Bottom line, she really liked action, and I was like, okay, let's start over here. And so I was like, these are all the action stuff, and she said she liked books. I told her this is the book series I read. If you want to go read it. Now we're here.
And now I probably bugged the shit out of him. I'm like, hey, can we watch The Mandalorian? Can we watch The Mandalorian? Like, please. Because I was hooked.
Oh, no, yeah. No, I'm like, and I wanted to, too. Every time you text me, can we watch The Mandalorian? And every time I've had to say no is literally because I have all of this, like, other stuff I have to do. And she's like, oh, I really want to watch it right now. I'm so glad somebody wants to watch this with me.
I think that is all the time we have for this episode. So, I will see you guys next time. And since Luke is the guest, I'm going to let him take away the outro and once again pull a shameless plug.
Okay, so we're going to shut up now. Bye, guys.
That was awesome.
Did I do it right?